Hi guys, welcome to our daily encounter. Zechariah was written around the same time as Haggai, and it was during the reconstruction of Jerusalem, a time in which the returning exiles were trying to get back on their feet again. They're trying to rebuild Jerusalem, and it's a very difficult time for the Jewish people at the time. And in Zechariah chapter 2, we have an encouraging word given to Zechariah. Starting in verse 3, it says, "And behold, the angel who was speaking with me was going out, and another angel was coming out to meet him, and said to him, Run, speak to that young man, saying, Jerusalem will be inhabited without walls because of the multitude of men and cattle within it. For I, declares the Lord, will be a wall of fire around her, and I will be the glory in her midst." And this message has some messianic undertones to it. It seems to be pointing to the new Jerusalem, the heavenly Jerusalem, that is manifested through the church. When we look at the details of what's being described here, it's very similar to the church. The church is, of course, the new Jerusalem. We read about that in the book of Galatians, the Jerusalem that is above. In Revelation, we read about the new Jerusalem coming down out of heaven, an allusion to the church. We talk about in the book of Hebrews. Also, we talk about the heavenly Jerusalem there. And in many different places, Jerusalem is tied to heaven. And of course, the church is tied to that heavenly Jerusalem and is the manifestation of the heavenly Jerusalem here on the earth. And in this passage, you seem to have that described because it says that Jerusalem will be inhabited without walls. And of course, the church is without walls. Now, not to say that we don't meet in buildings that have walls and things like that, but when we talk about the redeemed who are living out and scattered among the earth like the salt of the earth, we are without walls. In other words, we're not collected in one particular city that is surrounded by walls, and where you can point to this particular city and say, that's Jerusalem, that's the church, that's the people of God, because we're spread out over the whole earth. And certainly the heavenly Jerusalem manifested on earth is so full and overflowing that it doesn't have walls. And that's what's being described here. And as we think about that, that might be a little discomforting because, at least if you're contained in a city, and you've got walls around the city, you might feel protected. And we might think, well, it's better to be collected in the city with walls around it so that we can be protected from our enemies and not be so easily attacked or persecuted or things like that. And so we might say, being scattered is great. The fact that the glory of the Lord, the knowledge of the Lord has filled the earth and his people are scattered over the ends of the earth is a wonderful thing and a great thing, but at the same time, it leaves us exposed. We go into places where we are not around necessarily other believers. We go into our workplaces. We go to places of business and the grocery store and other various activities, and we're going out into the world where we're exposed to the world. We're not contained within walls, but we're out in the world and shining as lights into the world. And that leaves us exposed to persecution, exposed to slander, exposed to temptation and stumbling blocks, and the list goes on. And so we might say, well, it's good that the church is spread out and that there's so many people that it's spread out over the whole earth. But at the same time, there are challenges to that because we are out scattered in the earth, in the world, where there are all these things. And that's where the next word becomes very important. In verse 5, where it says, "For I, declares the Lord, will be a wall of fire around her." We may not have a wall of stones, of brick and mortar, things like that, of steel, but we have a wall of fire about us. The God, the Father himself, is like a wall of fire around us to guard and to protect and to watch over his people. And that can be comforting as we go out into a world that sometimes is hostile against us. And then the second thing here is that God's presence will be with his people. It says, and I will be the glory in her midst. As we have the glory of the Lord with us. We have the fire of the Lord around us, like a wall around us, and we have the glory of the Lord within us, here among us. He's in us, and he walks among us. His presence is here, and this can bring us comfort. Yes, we are exposed to the world as we are scattered throughout the world, but we are contained in God, and God becomes our wall, and God's glory abides with us and in us, and therefore we can contact the world and still be safe from its influence, and be safe from perhaps the spiritual dangers that we might encounter as we go into a dark world. So let's be encouraged by this word from Zechariah, and let's be thankful that we are God's people and that we're a part of this Jerusalem that's being described. And we want this Jerusalem to spread more and more, and for it to become more and more full of people who are trusting in the Lord, who have placed their faith in Jesus Christ, so that the glory of the Lord will fill the earth more and more, and it would be to his glory that his name and his fame will spread to the ends of the earth. So these are some things we can reflect on and think about as we do a reading today. With that, guys, I do thank you for watching the video today. Hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. God bless.